Welcome. You're listening to Ask the Doulas, a podcast where we talk to experts from all over the country about topics related to pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and early parenting. Let's chat.
Hello. This is Kristin with Ask the Doulas, and I am so excited to chat with Kelly Emery today. Kelly teaches our breastfeeding classes at Gold Coast and our back to work pumping class, and she's an RN, IBCLC, and has so many certifications and degrees, including the fact that Kelly was a former doula before doulas were even really a thing. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Kristin. It's great to be here. Happy to be on your podcast.
So I would love for you to give our listeners a bit of a glimpse of your background. You, again, as I mentioned, have so many different degrees and trainings, and you have so much experience, and you were helpful with my own children. And so I'd love to learn more about you.
Yeah, sure. It all happened way back. Well, I went to college actually to be a teacher and then a psychologist. So I wasn't quite sure. So I got both certifications. But during my graduate school, when I was wanting to be, learning to be therapist, I got pregnant. And that was way back in 1991 or 1990. And then my whole life changed, and my focus changed. And I can't even explain it to anybody, but I just fell in love with the whole birth and breastfeeding world. And it just took my world in a different direction. And then I did some certification for being it's called a lactation educator, certified lactation educator. Back then it was a certification. And then in 94, and then to become a doula around that same time, like you said. So got some really good experience helping moms just in my role as a doula, and that grew and grew and grew, and it just kept snowballing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be a psychologist. I'm not going to be a teacher. This is what I want to do. Fast forward a bit, and I decided I needed to go to nursing school. I wanted to learn more about how the body works and how the breasts work and how just everything kind of fits together, and how amazing our bodies are. Actually just really pulled me forward into that. So I got a nursing degree, and then I started working. Well, I've always been doing home visits, but then I started doing hospital work, and which was an eye-opener, and it was really great to see babies just right after they're born and what happens in the hospital.
Yes.
And then just progressed. I started a little boutique where I sold breastfeeding. I saw patients in my office, but I also sold like pumps and bras and all the breastfeeding gear.
And I taught my first class in your space.
Yeah, that was such a lovely time.
Yes, it was.
While it lasted, it was so great because we had so many classes and just people coming in and just lonely moms wandering in, just wanting to get out of the house, and we had a support group in there, and it was the best. But unfortunately, 2008, and I just financially couldn't keep it going. So it was bad recession time. So the boutique ended, but I still kept doing Baby Beloved, which is my business where I do home visits and office visits. I do telehealth, and then I also go to 6 different pediatric offices, and I subcontract with them. So I'm all over the city, usually at least 5, sometimes 6 days a week.
Yeah, you are busy. Yeah. That is for sure.
Yeah.
So, and you've been an educator both in hospital and classroom for quite some time, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So back from in the 90s on, I've been teaching breastfeeding classes and just ventured out, doing more of that via Zoom because of COVID and getting my online class going too. But I actually also a few years back got my master's degree in nursing education. So it was a really good adjunct to that to help me understand better how people learn and just different techniques for educate people about their bodies and their health and all of that. So I have, lots of like little initials behind my name. But
yes, you sure do.
Long story short, I love teaching, and it's a great, I teach even when I'm one-on-one with a person, but in a group, it's a different dynamic and it's super fun.
Agreed. And yes, with the pandemic, we had to shift all of our Saturday series to virtual for a bit. And luckily, we've been back to in person since
Yeah.
the spring. So that has been, so much better
Yeah, it really
as
is.
far as being able to really, interact and attune to
Yeah.
each couple's needs. But
Yeah.
tell us a bit about your breastfeeding class and, why it is important for couples who want to breastfeed to get
Mhm.
educated before they have their baby
Oh,
or
yeah.
babies.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people just bypass. They don't, not a lot of people take a breastfeeding class, and they wish they had later, when I'm in their living room helping them breastfeed, they're like, oh, nobody told me this. And oh, I wish, all of those things. But they focus a lot on childbirth education, which is very important as well. But
Right.
labor is going to be over, hopefully within 24 hours, labor is going to be over. And it's a wild ride getting there, but in the end, you have your baby and there you go. But breastfeeding goes on and on for as long, however many weeks, months, years you want to do it. It's a daily thing, sometimes 8 to 12 times a day. So it's something that's going to take up a major part of your day, and lots of things to know, lots of expectations to set, and just learning how your body works, but also how your baby eats, like how human mammals actually eat. So, and then once you know that, like once you know how your body works and how your baby works, then you can blend it together to make like a unique breastfeeding relationship for yourself within your family unit. And like, because everybody has competing things, like I got to go to work, back to work in this many weeks or months. And I
Right.
have my mother-in-law living with me and she has dementia, or like I have 6 other kids, and like there's so many things that weigh into a decision of even whether you want to breastfeed. But the more you know, the more you can tweak it to personalize it however you want it to be. Yeah.
Exactly. And your class is definitely recommended for partners as well
Yeah.
as the birthing person.
Yeah, totally. That's the first slide in my PowerPoint, is a picture of the dad holding baby or a partner. Whoever is going to be your person, who's going to be with you at 2 a.m. and who's going to hold your hand through all of this, that person ideally would be in the class as well. And I know sometimes it's, especially guys, if they're there, they feel a little awkward being there, but I will tell you, like, I will not make it awkward for you.
Right.
And a lot of what I have to say is directed at the support people, because research has shown over and over and over again, when we look at research about what makes breastfeeding successful and what helps a person meet their breastfeeding goals, it's always the support person, the partner that's there. It's not the lactation consultant. I mean, I play a small part, as does your pediatrician and all the other people in your life, but
Right.
far and away, like it always rises to the top, that one person who is so influential in the breastfeeding rates and how they turn out is the partner. And so they
Exactly.
play no small part in this. And yeah, I totally encourage everybody to come and bring your cheerleader, like bring whoever's going to be with you there at 2 a.m.
Yes. And I know you touch on other feeding methods, in the
Mhm.
course, but you also have a specific class on back to work pumping
Yeah.
for those clients who wish to pump later, or,
Yep.
some students, have the plan to start out pumping for multiple reasons.
Sure. Yeah, there are some people who don't want to put the baby to the breast. They want to lactate, and they want to put it, like pump it and then feed it by bottle. So I go over all of those in my class. The last section of my class is dedicated a lot to going back to work or pumping, and how can, the partner introduce a bottle without it interfering with breastfeeding, like how do we manage both? If mom wants to do both, a little bit of breast and a little bit of bottle, how can we set that up for success? So yes, definitely we do some of that in the last part of the class. But if you wanted a deeper dive into it, it's a 3-hour class on back to work that goes through a lot more stuff. Plus, during the back to work, it's a lot about pumping and how to
Right.
choose a pump, how to maintain your milk supply. Are there any foods, or like what's up with that? Like, is there anything that helps it? And then how do you talk to your employer? There's so much rich content in there. So, but that if you did the breastfeeding and back to work class, you'd be there for 6 hours with me. So that's a little long to sit for a class. So
Right.
the back to work that working and pumping class is separate, and you have access to it for 2 years. So you can always like go back to it like 9 months later and say, what did she say about freezing this or blah, 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 whatever. So that's kind of a nice option.
Hey, Alyssa here. I'm just popping in to tell you about our course called Becoming. Becoming a Mother is your guide to a confident pregnancy and birth, all in a convenient 6-week online program. From birth plans to sleep training and everything in between, you'll gain the confidence and skills you need for a smooth transition to motherhood. You'll get live coaching calls with Kristin and myself, a bunch of expert videos, including chiropractic care, pelvic floor physical therapy, mental health experts, breastfeeding, and much more. You'll also get a private Facebook community with other mothers going through this at the same time as you to offer support and encouragement when you need it most. And then, of course, you'll also have direct email access to me and Kristin, in addition to the live coaching calls. If you'd like to learn more about the course, you can email us at info@goldcoastdoulas.com or check it out at thebecomingcourse.com. We'd love to see you there.
That's amazing. And then your breastfeeding class is part of our Saturday series. We offer that in our office in East Town every 2 months. And then for those students who can't make that date on a Saturday afternoon, then you do have recorded self-paced options for the breastfeeding class that you can register for off of the goldcoastdoulas.com website, as well as the back to work pumping also is a recorded version, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And then with Saturday series, the beauty is you can, register for all three, the comfort measures, the breastfeeding, the newborn, or just pick a la carte what you want. So if you're only interested in the breastfeeding class, then you can select that option. And then as far as, just getting into the differences, you did describe your class beautifully, but, having attended it and gotten, so much wisdom from your series, I'd love for you to talk about the difference between your class and, a hospital breastfeeding class.
Yeah, sure. A few years back, I used to teach a hospital class. And when I did it, I was representing the hospital. So I had to use it was like a prepackaged PowerPoint, basically, that they bought from a company. So it was pretty basic, and it was good information, but it was pretty basic. And because I have so much experience as a lactation consultant, I also peppered it, with my own real life experiences and case studies and stuff like that, which kind of, made it more fun and interesting. But my PowerPoint, which for my own business, I have total control over creating that. So mine is not so cookie cutter. It's very individually curated to what I see the most things that cause hiccups in breastfeeding in just all the patients that I've seen, since 1994. So I know what are the biggest hurdles that moms need to know about. What are some ways, just basically boiling it down to what does she really need to know? What's going to be important? I can tell her this and this, but she's not going to remember it. So how do I bring a story to it? So if this does happen, she can remember that story and then remember the concept better. So, and I have lots of pictures, tons of pictures, which I think, the more modes of learning, the better, when you can, see it in motion. So I have lots of videos too of mom's breastfeeding. And then the other thing especially for the pump part, I bring in my pump and we get to play with all these pumps and all these things like nipple shield, like all these stuffs I pass them around. So tactilely, they get to touch it and play with breast shields and see how they're different sizes. There are different sizes when you pump, so we can kind of look at all of it. And so that's different, I think, from the hospital one. And it's fun too. I like to make it interactive, and especially in a group class, there's just some cool dynamics when you get people together who are in the same stage of life, and it's not like in a big auditorium where there's 100 people in there and you don't really feel like you can answer, raise your hand. These are smaller group classes where you can have a conversation. And I think where conversations happen, that's where the richness is. And that's how we understand concepts better, like when we talk it through. So plus the camaraderie, like the other people all in the room, they're in the same boat and they're just starting out too. So it's really good to know that you're not alone and you're not dumb for not knowing this stuff. It's just, you've never done it before. You're a rookie, so it's very normalized to be able to take in all this information.
Right. And I recall from registering students that it's not always first-time parents who
True.
take your class. 'Cause some people didn't have success breastfeeding with
Yeah.
other babies and then
Yeah.
really want to get that education and
Yeah.
set themselves up for success this time around.
Yeah. And those are so good to have in class because when they talk, the others really like perk up and listen because they want to hear it. I mean, you can always hear it from a lactation consultant, but hearing it from another person who's already been in the trenches and coming back with real talk about it,
Right.
it's very powerful to hear a real person's story.
Agreed. Yeah. And again, just accommodating to different learning styles. And I loved the interaction and the way you demonstrated different, breastfeeding positions and talked a lot about latch and, supply. So that's always a big concern for doula clients is, am I going to produce enough milk?
Yeah. I know it is. It's a big, I mean, most people do, but I'll be honest, there are some people who struggle and it's through nothing wrong that they've done, but sometimes that happens. So we also go over, I'm honest about that as well to say there is a small amount of people who with certain medical issues usually. So, and I talk about those in my class that if you have any of these medical issues, it's great to get support right away. So to set yourself up for success, especially during those first 2 weeks of breastfeeding when kind of a supply is established. So yeah, it's the more you know, the better prepared you'll be and you can get, support lined up ASAP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love also the option with the recorded class is people can take your class from anywhere in the country or world. So with our becoming students, they're able to register for your virtual options and they could live in New York or Seattle. And so that is also amazing. And you do, even though these are some recorded versions, you do offer Q&A calls. Correct?
I do, yeah. Like once a month, it's the first Wednesday of the month in the evening. There's a free Q&A for anyone who's pregnant. So they can come and ask me anything and it's free. And they can even, the last one that I did, I had someone who just wanted to jump on to see if she jived with me, is this someone I want to be taking a class with? So that was cool. So because you don't want to spend your time and money with someone whose values you don't, you want to be able to know that you can talk to them and you're going to gel with them. So so that was really good. So anyone who just wants to get to know me better or has a burning question, maybe there's something on your mind. Maybe you did take a class already, but you still have questions. So anyone can register for that on my website.
That's great. So any final tips for the listeners or our students?
No, I just really encourage you to think about taking a class because once your baby comes, it's go time. And there's not going to be a lot of time to sit down and read books and, take 3-hour classes after the baby's born. So now is a time to soak up as much as you can. And having 4 ears there is better than 2 because sometimes what you may hear something and then your partner hears a little differently or it just hits differently. And then they can remind you later. I've had that happen a lot where I'm someone who's taken my class and then later has hired me to be their lactation consultant. The dad comes in and says, yeah, remember she said to do this, blah, blah, blah.
Right. They remember. Yeah, I know my husband did.
They really do. They're listening with a different set of ears. So it's good.
Totally. Okay. So Kelly, you mentioned price before. So our course, the breastfeeding as part of Saturday series is $85. Each class in our series is $85. So whether it's an in-person or virtual, that is $85. And we do accept health savings and flex spending. And Kelly, your back to work pumping class is how much?
Yep. It's $49 and that's access for 2 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And feel free to share your personal contact info with our listeners. And of course, you can find any of the class information on the Gold Coast Doulas website.
Okay. You can find me at www.babybelovedinc.com. And yeah, that's the best way to contact me, through the contact page, I guess.
Yeah, and I know you're on Instagram and Facebook and other areas.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I
Yeah.
am.
Well, it was lovely to chat with you. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing all of your wisdom with our listeners. And
Yeah.
I hope they'll all be seeing you soon in either the in-person or recorded
Yes.
class.
Me too. Thank you so much, Kristin.
Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Doulas. For more information about Gold Coast Doulas, visit us on our website, goldcoastdoulas.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review. Thank you. Remember, these moments are golden.